This is an interview with the CEO of Iagon, a technology that runs on Cardano, the first cloud computing platform, in fact, to run on the Cardano blockchain. Starting off first with a government grant from Innovation Norway, they then filed an international patent and raised additional capital. Iagon aims to revolutionize the cloud. Sit back and enjoy this delightful conversation with Navjit Dhaliwal. Hey, everybody, it's Eddie, and we have just a really great interview planned for you. I'm so happy to tell you that Navjit Dhaliwal, that's a tough one for me on the last name, but we're going to call him Nav. We're going to keep it very simple.
Nav is simple.
Nav is here, and he's got a business that is very innovative. It's part of the storage economy. It's really going to be, I think, massive with the coming of all the bells and whistles that the Web 3.0 brings. The storage on a permissionless network is going to be just, I think, really in demand. And so I want to hear a little bit about what he is doing, what they are going to plan for their roadmap in 2022, and just, really get to know this project a little bit better. So welcome. Thank you so much for joining me tonight.
Thanks for having us, Ari. Glad to be here.
Well, I think for everyone who is maybe not familiar with yourself, let's start with just a simple introduction, let people know about your background, maybe how this was a space that attracted you to build in, and then also try to introduce what Iagon is for everyone.
Yeah, sure. I came into the space in about 2013. That's actually, I'm from a healthcare industry, actually. I'm a dentist by profession. But in high school, I took programming in C++. So I was into, let's say, innovative technology and always reading, trying to update myself on new tech as well. So I came across Bitcoin paper in 2013. It took a few reads before I understood kind of the generic concept of it. And well, it was actually a product at that time. And I started reading it, understanding it, and understood kind of the high level, the technology of blockchain around it, and tried to imply that in my industry, being the healthcare industry. So I try to imply that into healthcare records, patient data, patient privacy. So securing patient data with, let's say, blockchain as a security layer. And also building around compliance, right? Which is a big issue today in GDPR. Back then, it was not as big, but now it's getting much more important for industries around the world. And eventually, I actually moved to Norway in 2013. So there's a lot going on in my personal life. So I didn't reapproach the idea till 2017. And that's when there was a lot of other players that were doing something similar, but in a more generic sense, like Filecoin, storage, and Sia Coin, for example. These guys or these projects were doing something similar, but more generically. So not to reinvent the same thing, and a lot of projects do that, and they kind of mix and match and try to come up with something to work around the solution, but we're trying to create some real world scenario here where we can actually use this as a fundamental tool to, protect data and adhere to compliance. So I approached some industry experts in the space, who are currently the co-founders as well. Dr. Elad Harrison being the first one I approached. He's from Israel. He's one of the co-founders. He's a machine learning professor. An AI expert, and Dr. Rohit Gupta, who's the former director of technology for Expedia. He's from Seattle, the US, and is currently working as senior manager in Google. His thesis back in 2005 actually relates to directly what we're doing. He was very eager to come on board as one of the co-founding members because of the fact that it allows him to finish his PhD work, which he finished in 2005, or well, started in 2005. So he was really eager to jump on board. And we have Dr. Claudio Lima, who's from Houston, Texas. He's the former director of technology for Huawei in East Asia. He's one of the blockchain architects in the early going. So those are the 4 founders and myself, being the early ones that came to the project, try to create something more unique, something different. So how we looked at the blockchain space was in terms of compliance and also in terms of, let's say, smart allocation. It wasn't available at that time. So what Iagon actually does is Iagon's the first shared storage economy that bridges decentralization with regulation, enabling us to target enterprise clients. We are kind of now veering off to Web3 as well, which will be storage for Web3 like metaverses, NFTs. We do have grants from Innovation Norway and SkatteFUNN. Innovation Norway is actually government funded, and so is SkatteFUNN is a tax incentive. So we were also approved for that. So we get tax back anything we get back for the next 2 years, anything we develop for the next 2 years. And we actually expanded our team this year. We closed a funding round of 3.6 million in July, and also we're opening offices in Poland and Australia. We have currently 19 team members. We're expanding that to around 25 very shortly, and we're heading in. Well, we're trying to make how we differentiate ourselves is we have a few things. And we are doing, a lot of the competitors are doing sharding files and then spreading across to the resource providers that are allocating their idle resources like storage or compute, but they're doing it randomly. So what makes us different is we have a decentralized smart autonomous marketplace, which means that we're learning the behavior of each resource provider. So we're learning the behavior in terms of their performance, availability, trustability, different factors. We can also include IP location, which is important for compliance. So if you want to be GDPR compliant as an end user, we can match you with providers that are in the EU. And even though we do it randomly, we do it in a specific manner that the end user requires. So if they require to be GDPR compliant, if they require to be having a high performance, we only allocate to those resource providers. So that's how we differentiate between the competitors. And of course, we do, since we also put a lot of our own time and energy and our own funding into the project as well, we actually were one of the first to patent that technology. Even though we are open source, we are going to be open source. So we don't want to make it a negative feeling. Like, I know the blockchain community is very open source, and they like it that way. And that's the whole kind of premises of blockchain and the cryptocurrency community. And we don't want to sway away from that. We want to be open source, but at the same time, we have to protect our time. There's a lot of copycats, a lot of people coming into the space, and we want to have some kind of first mover advantage in the space. So that's our first mover advantage.
You have a lot of talent. It sounds like the team is just phenomenal. Blockchain, I think, is going to be perfect for what you're trying to do. Maybe then you will strive to be completely decentralized in the future, but in the meantime, in the building process, sounds like you'll be more of a hybrid solution, right?
Well, we are going to be fully decentralized to a sense, but I don't think any other project can be fully decentralized. The only project that can be fully decentralized is Bitcoin, because they have no enterprise behind it. They have no person putting it in the correct direction. It's a joint community. There's no persons behind it. Right. It's out there, and I don't think it's next to impossible to do it nowadays. And have that, that's why Bitcoin is so big. It's fully decentralized, meaning that there's, from every aspect, from the business side and from the actual the open source and everything is decentralized. But
Yeah.
nowadays, a lot of the projects are working actually in a hybrid solution. A lot of projects, even Cardano is working in a hybrid solution because a lot of they're developing in-house and then they're releasing to the public and then they're doing open source. So it's kind of like a hybrid solution, right? And a lot of projects are working that way right now. So we try to work in the same kind of way that other projects are working.
Yeah, I'm just kind of curious. So it sounds like you are very well informed of the advantages or disadvantages of being centralized or decentralized. What do you think is the biggest advantage to being decentralized, and then what is a disadvantage to being decentralized?
So I think that there's a lot of advantages to being decentralized. So one of the advantages is, the cost effectiveness. So it's much cheaper to be, directly in contact with a resource provider, for example, than if you would use a middleman like AWS or Google to connect to a resource provider. So first of all, cost effectiveness is one thing. Giving control back to the people is a huge advantage, I would say.
Yes.
And that's one of the biggest things about blockchain and cryptocurrency, blockchain in general, is that it gives power back to the community, and swaying away from bigger enterprises that are controlling everything. And and I think that's the biggest point that we can make in this kind of in data and cloud. It's giving the data and privacy back to the people, the power to control their own data, the power to not share something or share something and have control over what the sharing protocols are for that specific file. So it's a huge advantage. I mean, in terms of disadvantages, I would say in the early stages, I would say that when the solution, especially us in a beginning stage, it is not as secure, or it's not as performing as a centralized server. It's not as efficient. But I think as adoption grows, especially in this space, adoption is moving very rapidly. And once it grows and grows, I think that the security and also the performance efficiency will fix itself. So scalability is a big issue in decentralization, and that's the reason, right? And adoption will fix that.
What about the governance for your project? I mean, they're still being decentralized. There'll have to be some sort of governance moving forward. How does that shape up?
Yeah, so I mean, eventually we have to have, in the beginning, we have to have some kind of direction. And I think that most of the projects in the early stage, they get funded, they get supported by the community in order to sell a vision. So we are selling a vision to the community and saying, okay, this is the direction we're heading. And obviously, there's successes and there's non-successes, right? And obviously no one wants to be in that non-success area, right? So there has to be someone that the community believes in that can understand, okay, we're taking the right path here. We're taking the right steps to get to that success. And eventually, once we reach that, there has to be some kind of governance system, not just allocated by the enterprise itself or the people behind the project. But once we reach those goals and the end goals, there has to be a governance where the community itself can control certain aspects of the project. But we are not there yet. And I think that, for example, Bitcoin is already there. Bitcoin is having these, and that's why there's so many forks, right? So many hard forks, and the community can drive whichever direction they want to go. And that's what's a beauty about Bitcoin, because the adoption is there, it's already, right? And we want to try to get there.
Yeah, I was impressed actually that the Taproot actually went through. That whole process, to see that just done, that was really something. Really something to see a truly decentralized project make that step. That was interesting. So your clients, you're probably going to go after the healthcare sector, I would imagine, to start.
Actually, you'd be surprised, because the healthcare sector is very hard to tap into. It's very political, and there's a lot of let's say hula hoops that you have to jump through before you get to the end goal. I think the first clients we are going to be targeting, we have some pilot customers on board as well, Scepter OS and a couple other projects. But also we are targeting mainly the blockchain space because it's easy to go right to the points and understand what the advantages of the technology instead of in a traditional market where you're explaining the situation and making them try to understand from your side. Yeah. So it's a harder sell, but at the same time for the blockchain community, our main target groups in the blockchain community are initially going to be metaverse and NFT, decentralized storage for metaverses, decentralized storage for NFTs. These are our target groups, you know, for Web3. But for traditional spaces, we have, for example, in talks with a company called Scepter OS, which is in Norway, and we are trying to. There's a legal firm as well, so we are trying to talk with them and see what kind of pain points their clients have, especially when it relates to GDPR compliance. So GDPR compliance is a big issue these days, where companies in traditional sense cannot track that compliance in a live setting, and authorities cannot also track that. So authorities have a hard time understanding the compliance, and they're only going after the bigger fish like Google, Facebook, that are being non-compliant because they don't have the resources to send people everywhere to do control checks on different companies, especially SMEs. So we want to be there. We want to solve that problem, and through Scepter, we are creating kind of like a compliance, live GDPR compliance tool, which can help companies and private individuals, like let's say they want to send a file, they can understand the transparency of that file. If you don't want to share it to a third party, if you want to delete it at a certain date, not to prevent that from happening, but to give more transparency back to the user to understand, okay, your file was shared to a third party, your file was not deleted. So these kind of aspects, providing more transparency, more power to the end user.
Yeah, that's going to be world changing for people's data. I think that's going to bring a lot of value to the space because we don't have that at all right now in the legacy systems. What about in terms of your differentiating your product? I think I got that. There was one word that you touched on, which I think would be helpful for everyone, and that is the sharding. I think people hear this word in blockchain, but maybe they don't quite understand it. And then how does that actually benefit what you're doing to actually use the sharding technology? Yeah, I think it would be helpful.
Sharding is actually, there's a few definitions for it, and in different in the sense that if you apply it to different contexts. But in our sense, in terms of sharding files, I can give you like a simple example of what that specifically means. So if you take a puzzle and you put permanent marker on the puzzle, and the permanent marker is the encryption, the first encryption, and then you're slicing that puzzle and let's say putting it through a shredder, right? So you're making multiple slices of it. That's the sharding protocol. And then you're making multiple copies of each small shred. And then you're allocating it to resource providers, right? That are on the network. So these shreds are going, so you don't specifically, if that shred was, for example, on a PC and that PC got hacked, there's no way of knowing what that piece of information is. It doesn't give you a picture of the puzzle. It doesn't give anything because it doesn't make sense until you combine all the pieces. And in order to combine all those pieces, you have to have your own private key. And the only person that has access to that is the person that uploaded it. So there's no one, not even Iagon, not anyone can read that information.
Yeah, it's really creates a secure environment, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I'm really curious because you are the very first person that I've talked to in this sort of format that is building on Cardano. And that to me is really exciting. I just want to hear why you chose to build on Cardano.
So there's a few reasons why we built on chose to migrate to Cardano. We were on Ethereum, and
Ethereum.
now we're moving over to Cardano.
Mm.
So a few things are cost effectiveness, interoperability, and scalability as well. So there's three reasons, but also not to take away from the ethos of Cardano. So Cardano is really empowering people to give power back to the people, especially, for example, all the things that they're doing in Africa, that they're empowering people to get their own identities, have a banking app, financial and an identity app. So they're helping a lot of people. And we want to have that same kind of effect on empowering people. We want to empower people through giving power back to them controlling their own data, having privacy, having security over that. So that's a few reasons that we chose Cardano. And also they're built from long work of let's say educational work, right? So they didn't just deploy something. They did a lot of research,
a lot of papers,
a lot of paperwork. They studied a lot, so it's research built, right?
Yeah.
And when you have that core from that really builds a strong structure, strong core. Whereas, for example, Ethereum is built more in a freestyle. So now you see Ethereum that is trying to fix the flaws that they actually originally could have fixed in the beginning, right? So they're working in a different way. They're working counterproductive, where Cardano's building from ground up, right? It's working. That's why it's taking so long for them to get to where they are, right?
Yeah, but it's really been I think this year, 2021, has been a really big year for Cardano, and I'm happy to see
get bigger
progress. Yeah, I know. Yeah. And I do think that a lot of people are aligning with the ethos of the project, so I understand that passion that goes behind that choice, but I just wanted to hear from you. I think it's great. So your partners or your clients, are there anybody you can mention or share with everyone who maybe is either someone you're working with, someone who you have signed an agreement with, or someone that you actually are hoping to work for in the future or work with in the future?
Yeah, I mean, we have a couple of signed MOUs right now. We're very excited to share with the community. Unfortunately, we can't share this right now, but we do have a few. We have a data center that's over 250 data centers across the world. A data center company, basically, is one of the largest in the world. So we are excited to announce that partnership. We're going to the final phases. We're going through a penetration test and to see if everything is okay in the core before we actually release that information. There's a couple of other partnerships that we have with the Cardano Exchange and also Cardano Dex and also a metaverse project that we will announce in when we're allowed.
Do you think it'll be this year, maybe, or
I think at least one or two will be this year, and then the other one will be probably in January. Yeah.
Exciting. So the roadmap for 2022, what's on the priority list?
So first, we want to actually do the ERC20 converter. Singularity Net actually just recently came out yesterday. They released information, IOG, and they're called now. They released information that they have an ERC20 converter. So we are hoping to get access to that. I mean, it's closed source currently. I think that they want to make sure they fine tune everything before they release on mainnet. Right now it's on testnet. So we hope to get access to that. So that's one of the priorities, trying to migrate some of the token supply to the Cardano native tokens, and then providing kind of some incentivizing scheme for users to stake their ADA and earn IG native Cardano tokens. So that's one of the priorities. We also have MVP for alpha testing in private for private users. We're going to have a limited amount of slots, so I urge the community to kind of keep an eye out for that. It's going to be in January. So we also are developing a Network Explorer, user administration access, so like sharing files and data access management with possibly functional NFTs. We're exploring functional NFTs. But we haven't decided on which route to go but that's Q3 in terms of data access management. And then we have the GDPR real-time compliance tool, which is also Q3 next year. And we also have Agora next year planned for Q3, Q4 around that time. But the initial kind of let's say priorities are for the shard model, and also to make sure the MVP on the alpha test and the beta test is released in the early next year. So that's our priorities.
It's full. You have a full schedule.
Yeah.
So you do have a token. I think it'd be really good. It's the IAG token. If you would explain the tokenomics of that and how it fits in, what its utility is, and its role.
Yeah, sure. We actually released recently a blog article on our website, and I mean, the community feel free to check it out on our blog, iagon.com, and you can scroll all the way down to check the other ways. So how it works is a portion of both transaction fees from the storage exchange or the marketplace and the yield by locked rewards go back to Iagon, but let's say people stake IAG tokens, they can earn revenue from the marketplace as well, and along with any revenue that Iagon earns. So this is shared revenue model where 10%.
Shared revenue.
Yes. So shared revenue for IAG holders. So they can stake their IAG and earn revenue as well. And also, if you're a resource provider, you can also earn tokens on top of that. So if you're providing your storage space or your compute, then you can also earn from that. And you know, they're committing storage and it's locked. The resource provider is committing storage and it's locked. The reward is locked for that period that the storage is committed for, and it's released after the storage has been you know, committed per se. So it's not that the rewards aren't released right away. They're released after that we see proof that, okay, that storage was provided at that time. During that time, it's locked, the rewards. The rewards are actually earning yield on top of that. So it's also for the IAG holders. So there's a lot of rewards for the IAG holders, and we're going to have delegated staking as well for our pool. So there's a lot of incentives we're trying to create a lot of utility around the IAG token, because it's obviously the most important aspect for investors currently. They want to see some early returns and you know, benefit from early adoption. And also we will be releasing an ambassador program, which will help resource providers come on board early and support the ecosystem and create awareness around the project.
What do you think of average lock time would be? You know, I know there's going to be probably a lot of ranges, but what do you think the average would be?
So the reward for the resource provider is locked on depending on how much the end user commits for. So let's say if you're a user and you bought 1 month of storage, right? Then that resource provider, that reward is locked for 1 month.
For
right?
1 month.
Yeah. So at the minimum is 30 days.
I got you. So you got a minimum, but somebody might choose to do a lockup for 2 years, for example, right? I mean, that's possible.
Yeah, of course, and earn more yield, and also they can lock the rewards into as IAG holder and earn portion of the revenues that are coming into Iagon as well.
Does the yield go up if the lock time is longer?
That's the idea, yes.
That would make sense to me. I would think to do that. Do you have any percentage of the yield? Can you give an idea of a range?
Currently, no. So I can, but I don't want to. We want to make sure that we emphasize or communicate something clear.
Yeah, I know.
And yeah, we don't want to give out a number that we don't go with. Yeah. So we will release that information once we have fine tune that model.
Yeah, well, I had to ask just because, you know, that's what everybody's thinking.
It's probably an important question, definitely.
Well, I think this is going to be a really interesting project to follow for sure. Is there anything that I missed to ask you that you want to be sure to let everybody know? Like how do they follow you? You know, where do you have a Discord channel? Should we go to Twitter? Where can people follow your progress?
So all of our socials are listed on our website. So if you go to www.iagon.com, then if you scroll to the bottom of the page, all of our socials are listed there. The best way to reach us is, if you want to communicate directly to us, is Telegram or Discord. Discord, we still have, the community is very early. So we don't have a large community on Discord. Our largest community is on Twitter. So you can also follow us on Twitter. And Telegram, we are active. We have a lot of community managers. We're happy to answer your questions. In terms of, you know, what might be missing or what we might have missed on. So I just want everyone to know, you know, like there's a lot of, usually there's a lot of questions in regards to, you know, and I think the biggest concerns for an investor is the tokens and the token price, token utility. Obviously token demand and token utility go hand in hand, right? So we want to make sure we emphasize to the community that we're working really hard behind the scenes, right? It might not be that we portray everything publicly right away, but we want to make sure that they know that we're trying our best or trying our hardest to like showcase what we're working on. We cannot share everything, but right away. But that is the plan, to make sure that we prioritize our development first, and then showcase to you guys what the results are. And you know, we're happy to answer questions in the community in terms of Telegram. Feel free to ask us. We're open. We're also always transparent, and we're never shy away from questions. So feel free.
Yeah, that's good. If you're approachable, I think the community is always appreciative of that. So I think that's really good. Yeah. Well, Nav, it's been just really a pleasure, and I am wishing you the very best in being able to hit all those goals that you have. You have that very full schedule coming up. And I just think, yeah, I think your timing is perfect for this space.
Yes. Yeah, it's really good timing right now. I mean, even though we have been here since 2017, I think now it's more so a perfect time for these kind of projects, especially cloud storage and cloud computing.
Yeah, with the coming of the metaverse and NFTs, it's a lot of data to be stored. I mean, it's just, that's, and it requires a specialty, and there's going to be an increased need for that. So I think you're just positioned to be very, very successful, and I wish you the very best.
Thank you. Thank you, Erin.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Thank you. And I hope to check in with you. Let's give it a few months out into 2022, and we'll check back and see how you're doing.
Not a problem. Just reach out anytime.
All righty. Thank you.
Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.